The Ghostbusters 2020/Ghostbusters 3 movie has been announced. And my big question is, will it acknowledge or will it ignore the events that transpired in the 2009 Ghostbusters the video game?
Are you troubled by strange noises in the night?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
Have you or your family actually seen a spook, specter, or ghost?
After Ghostbusters 2, everybody waited in anticipation for Ghostbusters 3, which never came. But then in 2009, we got Ghostbusters the video game, which brought back the original cast and a lot of the concepts that the movies brought to the table. The game itself was basically a third movie, which brought the story full circle and expanded upon the lore, revisited iconic locations and plot points, even upgraded some of the weapons like the proton packs with new science and new abilities. In the game, the lore of Gozer gets greatly expanded upon. He actually comes back in the form of Stay Puft. Walter Peck is back from the first movie, from the Environmental Protection Agency. You revisit the New York Public Library with the Gray Lady, because if you remember in the first movie, she was never caught by the Ghostbusters, they just ran away from her. And it turns out she was murdered by this guy called the Collector, which was also linked to Gozer. Beneath the library in the rare collection section is the Gozer book.
She took that pretty well, better than I expected.
It makes perfect sense if her residual spirit energy is tied to the book. The Gozerian Codex, right?
And with the events of the city going on, they're starting to teleport to other dimensions, emerging of the real world and what Egon calls the ghost world.
It's one of infinite potential configurations. You know, theoretically.
They find out after beating the Collector, Zeltor, that Ivo Shandor, remember him from the first Ghostbusters movie? He's the architect that built the building that Dana and Louis Tully lived in and was a big antenna for the coming of Gozer.
What does it represent?
It turns out that he did a lot of remodeling and work on other public buildings and works throughout the city, doing the same type of stuff to bring about Gozer and fit his agenda to merge the realms of this so-called ghost world.
Get this. The Codex does indicate there is some kind of feeder system required to channel energy to a destructor form.
They go back to the museum to fight. The Mandela that they find lays on the map of New York, which has all the major places from the Ghostbusters universe, from the Sedgwick Hotel to the museum, the New York Public Library. They even take a new craft called the Ecto 8, which is basically a tugboat, to the middle of the river where there's Shandor Island.
Shandor Island.
It turns out to be the source of the black slime and a huge castle in the river. And then the girl that Venkman is interested in this part of the story, Alyssa, turns out to have the blood of Shandor in her. She was strategically placed by the Gozer exhibit at the museum to activate all of the events that have transpired. The story concludes in Central Park in the graveyard setting to confront Peck and Alyssa.
Any guesses on where we'll find Peck and Alyssa?
And it turns out at the mausoleum in Central Park, at the conclusion, that Ivo Shandor has taken over the mayor's body, possessed him, and had Walter Peck come up with the whole plot to have Alyssa at the Gozer exhibition and to keep the Ghostbusters busy over the course of a few months.
Who decided to reinforce these shoulder straps?
Tech, and he controls Ghost World.
And he can come into our world. And
They then have to fight Ivo Shandor in his ultimate destructor form in the Ghost World, and then cross the streams to finally rid the world of Gozer, Ivo Shandor, and all of the interdimensional ghosts trying to take over our world. Saving the city yet again.
cross the streams.
The story in itself is a real interesting one and actually would make a great movie. Now, the question that I have is, will Ghostbusters 2020/Ghostbusters 3 ignore or acknowledge the events of the video game? I would be okay with it ignoring it only on the basis that some of the main plot points in this game become some of the plot points of the movie. But at the same time, since it seems like it's already been done through the video game, I would rather them just acknowledge it and move on with something else that adds to the same lore. I was very excited when the video game came out. I was like the only person to probably pre-order it at my local GameStop at the place I was staying at the time. I still go back every few years and play the video game to refresh myself on the story, because the way that it's portrayed and the way it's fleshed out in this game is 100% accurate to what a live action movie could be, and it lives up to that type of potential. I am very glad that they were able to get the cast together to do something on this level, especially before the passing of Harold Ramis. Now with the resurgence of the new movies, even the 2016 remake, for the longest time I really thought that the Ghostbuster franchise was going to end with the introduction of this video game into the Ghostbusters universe. But my question is, does Sony actually acknowledge this as being part of the main storyline? Is this canon? To me, as a Ghostbusters fan, it 100% is, and I don't think that it should be slept upon, and I don't believe that it should be ignored. There are many aspects of the game that I find to be way more intriguing than the second Ghostbusters movie in itself. I believe that tying it back and bringing everything full circle with Ivo Shandor, with Gozer, and wrapping up a lot of the things that kind of made the first movie what it was, but bringing out some of those elements and expanding upon them in the video game really help establish the lore and the tone of that first movie. Like I referenced earlier in this video, they also expanded upon what the proton packs could do with slime tethering, with boson darts, with other technologies that Ray and Egon have worked on since the fight with Vigo, since the fight with Gozer. Productive ways of being able to work with different types of interdimensional creatures, not just regular ghosts. And you got golems, and you've got possessions, and you've got new slime that's positively charged, and it works so well. I hope that they keep these types of upgrades moving forward, and it's not just the same basic principles that they left off on in just the cinematic movies. But what do you think? Do you think that they'll acknowledge the video game, or do you think that they'll just skim over it and only go with the established universe done in the first two movies? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please slam that thumbs up button for more Ghostbusters content in the future, and we will catch you in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.